You want the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth?
You can't handle the truth!
Well, we're giving you the Michigan Sports Truth, the show that is honest, reveals the facts, truth, and statistics, and does not mess around. Follow me, Taylor Phillips, on Twitter at DT2Phillips. Email me at TaylorGatorPhillips14@yahoo.com. Follow Ed Smith on Twitter at EdSmith313, and go to our website at MichiganSportsTruth.com. Also like our Facebook page, The Michigan Sports Truth on Spreaker, and join our group with the exact same name. The Michigan Sports Truth podcast is also available on iHeartRadio and SoundCloud. Also a subsidiary of Sports Radio Detroit, thus available on iTunes and Podbean. The views expressed by the host of this podcast are not opinion-based or for entertainment purposes. They are actually facts and truth, no matter if other people like it or not. It is the Michigan Sports Truth, and nothing can ever stop it from being correct.
Hey there, Michigan sports fanatics, and welcome to the Michigan Sports Truth, episode 40 on Spreaker. I'm Taylor Phillips with my co-host Ed Smith. Thanks so much for being on here with me, Ed. We are now going back to once a week, starting this week, and we got a lot to cover.
Yeah, we definitely do. A lot of stuff, a lot of things that happen. Some good, some not so good. We'll all be able to get it in under the umbrella, so to speak.
Yeah, we got college football. The regular season almost coming to its very ending here in 2016. Got the college basketball season tipping off in the mitten. Plus, we even got the Horizon League on a roll already. The Oakland Grizzlies already staying undefeated, by the way. Plus, we'll go into the pros. The Lions returning from their bye week and preparing for the Jacksonville Jaguars. We got the Red Wings losing 2 straight. The Griffins being covered 2. They're improving to 9-4-0. We'll get to them momentarily. Also, we got the Pistons staying undefeated at home and getting their first road win of the season. And Andre Drummond improving, finally, from the free throw line. And then we have some Tigers news, them continuing their off-season fire sale. Now, Ian Kinsler's in trade talks along with J.D. Martinez and Miguel Cabrera. Haven't heard anything about Justin Verlander in terms of trade talks yet, but we never know. Plus, Michael Fulmer winning the Rookie of the Year award. Spoiler alert. And the Cy Young Award results and everybody's reactions to it. And then we'll finally wrap it up with 10 questions, which will be at the end of the show on every episode of the Michigan Sports Truth on Spreaker from here forward. So, Ed, are you ready to kick this baby off?
Ready whenever you are, Taylor.
Yep. So, we're going to start with the Michigan Wolverines, who got upset last weekend.
Touchdown, Michigan!
They only scored 1 touchdown, speaking of which, and they got upset by the Hawkeyes 14-13 in Iowa City. On a game-winning 33-yard field goal by Keith Duncan. Both teams played very well on defense, but Michigan was making quite a few kinds of mistakes, including roughing the punter twice in a row, throwing a home run ball too many times for incomplete passes, courtesy of Wilton Spate, and then committing a face mask penalty, except it wasn't necessarily a good call by the referees, and finally not being desperate enough, the coaching staff, not being desperate enough to bring the blitz on the first and every play of Iowa's final game-winning drive, including the first play, first down, Iowa inside the around the 36 or 35 yard line. Iowa was setting up a screen, but Michigan. Here's an idea. Michigan should have brought blitz. They should have been They should have been more desperate to try to hang on for the win for their team. They didn't do that.
Especially when you consider the fact that their defensive coordinator, Don Brown, loves to bring the blitz. So it's really quite odd to see in this I know it wasn't, like I said, third and long, third and medium type of situation, but still, in that type of pressure situation when you know the game is on the line, quite puzzling to not see a guy who's known for being blitz happy not bring his blitzers when he needed it most.
Yeah, they were just playing conservative defense and couldn't overcome the adversity of that phantom face mask call or a close one.
Damn it!
And they paid for it in the end. And then after the game, even more tragic news 2 days later, Michigan junior quarterback Wilton Speight, speak of the devil, was diagnosed with a broken collarbone and will be out for the rest of the season.
Damn it! Oh, man!
So John O'Korn will take over center starting this upcoming Saturday at home against Indiana, and then in Columbus, and then maybe for the Big Ten championship, or maybe just a bowl game, or maybe in the college football playoff semifinals if Michigan manages to stay in the college football playoff ranking somehow.
Now on the subject of Speight, while we're going to cover the rest of this game, as it should be momentarily. But first, back to the Speight injury that you mentioned. Now, there were some conflicting reports, miscommunicating reports earlier in the week saying, not just the nature of the injury, but how long he would be out. Some were going with, it's a collarbone, and then he's done for the year period. And then some were saying, maybe regular season because you don't know, the bowl game, whatever that could be. And even some are saying that it's really not the collarbone at all. It could be a shoulder, could be an AC joint. Even Jim Harbaugh mentioned in the press conference this week that any reports that saying Speight is out for the year is really incorrect. If you want to do more in depth, if you want to get another side of the story, you can check out Adam Bigger's Twitter feed. That's at Adam Biggers 81. Adam Biggers 81 on Twitter, where he's quite confident in his assertions that, and with his own sources, that not only is Wilton Speight not out for the year, but does he even have a broken collarbone. Most likely he won't play against Indiana, but it's really, if anything, up in the air as to whether or not he will play against Ohio State. So we'll cross that bridge when we get there. But again, he's sticking by his gun, saying that any reports about Speight severity or the longevity of Speight's injury are entirely incorrect. If you're a Michigan fan, you're hopeful of that. It's just wait and see. It is an interesting note, though, that if you go to Wilton Speight's own Twitter, he did retweet a note that stated that, again, what I mentioned before about Harbaugh, talking about the fact that Speight's injury was not season-ending. There was a tweet on that, and Speight himself retweeted it. So that's probably an indication of, maybe there's something going on that we, the public, don't know yet. Obviously, it was just rubbing salt in the wound, injury added to insult with the loss. Now you lost your starting quarterback who's done a magnificent job this season. But all is not seemingly, like I said, I'll get back to the whole quarterback issue, but let's go back to what caused them not to have a very good game. It's simple. It was an absolute defensive battle, which I kind of figured it would be from one sense, from one instance. I will say this, though, at least I got the score correct in terms of what the amount of points Iowa would score. I just wasn't expecting Michigan to only manage 13. But, you got to give credit to Iowa's defense. They managed to get enough stops, get enough pressure. And when it came down to it, one of the big keys that I mentioned last week, they won the turnover battle. They forced 2 turnovers, whereas Michigan only forced 1. And them allowing to eat up the clock, doing that and really established the run game, which in recent weeks is starting to become a bit of a problem with Michigan. We saw how L.J. Scott did in the Michigan State game. Now Akum Wadley, the running back for Iowa, he had a very solid game himself. He had over 20 carries, had over 100 yards, got big plays for the Hawkeye offense when it was needed, and was a big part in them getting in that position to get that winning field goal. So him with Iowa establishing a run game allowed them to really control the time of possession as you see, as it evened out in the end. Iowa held the ball for 32 minutes, Michigan just over 27. So all those factors, the run game being exemplified better by Iowa, the turnover battle being won by Iowa, which of course gave life to the Iowa crowd, and just timely mistakes, and just Michigan just not finishing drives. There was one drive early on where they got the field goal. They only, the only reason why it was a field goal is because they got stopped right at the goal line, where they probably should have they should have just finished off, punched in for a touchdown. That's leaving points right off the board. It's a 4-point swing already. That wound up being the difference in a 1-point loss. Another thing that was a big difference also as well was the opening kickoff of the second half. Michigan fields a short kickoff. I think it's Khalid Heel, and he fumbles the ball, which leads to an Iowa field goal. So, granted, it wasn't a touchdown, but when you go back in the scheme of things, looking back in hindsight, when you lose a game by 1, those kind of little things add up, and was the big difference. So, bad performance from the standpoint of their offense didn't do well. Their special teams didn't do well in terms of protecting the ball in that regard. I think there was an instance that the coaches didn't have enough players out, and they had 10 men on the field on the last play of the game. So again, there was and like you mentioned to me, Taylor, in terms of messaging, Harbaugh did not do a good job with clock control. So all those little things added up to what we saw, which was a big upset for Michigan. For Iowa, rather, over Michigan.
Yeah, and Brian Cavanaugh was the first to touch on that on Twitter, the lack of clock management by Jim Harbaugh on Twitter. You can follow Brian Cavanaugh on Twitter at BCav93. Shout out goes to Brian Cavanaugh, by the way. Looking at the team stats, by the way, those mistakes cannot happen. Total yards, first off, Iowa 230, Michigan 201. Time possession, Iowa 32 and 45, Michigan 27 minutes 15 seconds. Not much penalty yardage and not very many penalties for either team, except for the targeting penalty. That one targeting penalty where to Michigan. Who was that player that got called for targeting and was ejected for the rest of the game?
Number 10, I don't have his name on me at the moment, but yeah, there was a mistake that he made. Now, granted, you could say, it cost him field position, but at the end of the day, they still got down to the point where they were inside the 10, deep inside the red zone. They could have punched it in anyway for a touchdown, but they just couldn't. So I'm not sure if you can say, that targeting penalty was the difference or not. That's a little bit of gray area to say in that regard.
Yeah, and some may think it was a bad call, and some may think that some may view that the referees did a poor job officiating the game itself, but you can't blame them for affecting the outcome of the game because they didn't. Michigan's defense did not overcome adversity. They didn't bring the blitz on first down. They didn't bring blitz at all on Iowa's final game-winning drive. So people need to stop bitching about the referees making the difference. They didn't.
You're just a crybaby, a coward.
Yeah, everything is not always a conspiracy, and everything is not always a ref show or the refs trying to show off how bad they can be. It's just flat out came down to the fact that Iowa made plays and Michigan didn't.
Definitely. That's correct.
I didn't see people, the refs for the kickoff fumble. I didn't see people blaming the refs for 2 turnovers. I didn't see people blaming the refs for Was it the ref's fault that the Michigan defense gave up 2 critical first downs
No.
that gave Iowa that needed yardage on that last drive that make it an easier field goal?
Hell
Please.
no. Not the referee's fault. They just try to call it down the middle. That's it. Also, speaking of back to the penalties here, five penalties for the Wolverines for 48 yards and only 3 for Iowa for 24 yards. Third down conversions, Michigan was 5 of 15, Iowa was 4 of 16. Fourth down conversions, the Hawkeyes 2 of 3. Michigan didn't get any fourth down situations or opportunities to convert on fourth down whatsoever. The individual box score, Wilton Spate before his injury, 11 of 26 for 103 passing yards, just 103.
You're pathetic.
And the 1 interception before he broke his collarbone. Not much rushing or receiving yardage here. But Wilton Spate's 103 yards, by the way, just 103. That's due to him throwing the ball deep too many times, and that cost him incomplete passes mostly. But back to the rushing and But as I just mentioned, the rushing and the receiving, not much. Chris Evans leading in rushing with 8 carries for 52. Jake Butt with 4 catches for 39. Iowa, C.J. Beathard, 8 of 19 for 66, a score and a pick. Akram Wadley, 23 rushes for 115 and 5 catches for 52 and a score, totaling up to 167 total yards. Those were the leaders in that box score. So all in all, Michigan has now lost 5 of their last 6 games at Iowa in Iowa City. They still need to learn how to beat those guys on the road a lot more. It's a tough place to play, but it's a demon that can be exercised sometime in the future. Michigan just has to work on that. But the next time the Wolverines play Iowa, especially in Iowa City, but anywhere, they're going to have some revenge on their agenda.
Obviously, and I hate to keep harping on of missed opportunities and mistakes, but another thing that look on early in the game. Look how Iowa got on the board with a safety, a friggin' safety. Okay, so those little things added up, and when you say, "Oh my goodness," that's how all those little points added up. That's how they won. They had a little bit of protection on that play. You would have given up a safety. If you brought more pressure, I think you would have forced a possible erratic throw from Iowa's quarterback, which could have led to something instead of those 2 first down conversions on that late on in the game. So Michigan, they only have themselves to blame here, not the refs or anything or any spooky demon or whatever. But it's not entirely all for loss because, like I said, I think there's a good chance Spate, could possibly come back. Obviously not Indiana, in time for Indiana, but who knows what will be for Ohio State. Who knows if they somehow beat Ohio State. Who's to say Spate can't come back for the Big Ten championship game? And if they manage to make it all the way to the college football playoff, I think it's a good chance he'll be able. He may not be 100%, but he'll be ready enough where he can play for the team in the semifinal game. So,
yep. But right now, as of right now, heading into the upcoming schedule, the question is. It's not one of the 10 questions that's coming up at the end of the show, but my question is, how can the Wolverines rebound from that upset defeat in Iowa City? Because they're lucky, especially because they're lucky enough to stay at number 3 in the college football playoff rankings due to everybody except Alabama having their undefeated season come to a screeching halt. Washington lost to USC. Clemson is no longer undefeated. The only team that remains undefeated in the college football playoff rankings at the top is the Alabama Crimson Tide, the defending national champions, but not to mention the Western Michigan Broncos, which are still ranked 21st, still undefeated, but they still have a long way to go. But the main point is Alabama is the only team in the CFP rankings staying undefeated. That's why they're still number one.
Yeah. Now, as to the topic of the rankings, I think one good reason, probably the only reason why Michigan not only stayed in the top four but didn't fall at all. Like you said, the losses by Clemson and Washington helped them out too, but also the fact that, as was explained by one of the chairpersons of the committee, Michigan is, I believe, the only team as of this moment that has 3 wins over teams currently ranked in the top 10 of the college football playoff rankings. So that would be Colorado, who was at 10, Penn State, which is at 8, and then Wisconsin right ahead of them at 7. So in terms of resume, saying, oh, who did Michigan beat? Well, it's paying off now because, as you can see, who's in the rankings right now. So if anything, that gave them a good enough reason to not only stay in those rankings, but not fall for their spot at all. Now Michigan, they're at a spot though where they can't really take another loss, especially if they lose to Ohio State or God forbid lose to Indiana. If they take another loss, they're most likely their chances are done. Example, like we've seen Louisville, they just got dismantled by Houston tonight. So their chances are all but dead now. It's going to take a lot to happen for Louisville to get the sniff of one of those Final Four spots. So Michigan, in terms of controlling their own destiny, I hate to follow this Mark Antonio line, but it's as true then as it is now. The goals are still ahead of them, and Michigan still controls their own destiny. If they just win out, they win their next 3 games, Indiana, Ohio State, and the Big Ten championship game. They're in the Final Four. They're in the Final Four, guaranteed.
And speaking of the Indiana Hoosiers, their upcoming game against them at the Big House kicks off at 3:30 on ESPN. Let's preview that. The Hoosiers are 3-4 in the Big Ten, 5-5 overall. They have plenty of offense, starting with the quarterback Richard Legault, 214 of 351 for 2,866 yards, 17 touchdown passes, and 13 interceptions. Divine Redding, 190 carries for 901 yards and 5 touchdowns. Nick Westbrook, 44 catches for 793 and 5 scores. Now, the keys to the game here for Michigan: stop the run, finish drives, and get back on track, and just shake off that Iowa loss. Yeah.
In terms of stopping the run, it's not going to be too easy to say because, like you mentioned with Redding, he's almost got 1,000 yards rushing on the year. So in terms of this will be, I guess, another test for Michigan's defense because we saw what L.J. Scott did. We saw what Wally did last week. Now let's see what Redding can do this week. If they can find a way to not contain, but at least, not stop completely, but at least contain a little bit of what Redding does, they'll be fine in that regard because their quarterback, Legault, he's not, you can say he's not what was considered a dual threat. Yes, they run the option. Yes, they run zone reads. Yes, they run a little bit of a spread. Yes, they do run a little bit of hurry up. But in terms of Legault, he himself is not a dual threat or a running threat in any capacity. So the main focus is on Redding. Keep him contained as much as possible. They'll do fine in the running game department. In terms of finishing drives, like I mentioned before, how many times did Michigan look like they were on the move and then something happened? A penalty here, or a drop pass, or late in the game, a turnover. They've got to find a way to stop settling for field goals, get near the goal line, punch it in the end zone, and get some damn touchdowns. That's obviously what would have helped them against Iowa. I suspect it will be easier to do against Indiana. A couple of reasons, one of which I think Michigan should be able to run the ball a little bit better. Indiana is not really that known to be a run stopper of a team, and their defense is nowhere near as good as Iowa's, as evidence of that by the fact that Penn State was able to score 45 on them last week. Now, albeit 7 of those came on a scooping score, but still, we're talking about over 30, 35, 38 points Indiana's defense gave up last week. So if that can happen to Penn State can do that, and imagine what Michigan can do. I mean, come on. This is a Rutgers team that barely managed to scrape out a 6-point win against Rutgers. Gave up 36 points in a close win against Maryland. Okay, so those are teams Michigan handled very easily, and it's in the big house. So this should point to a Michigan win. And like I say, in terms of getting back on track, yeah, Spade's hurt, but with John O'Corn, he should be prepared to come into this. He's done practice. He's done reps and has done practice all year. Uh, some of his players have commented, their confidence in. For instance, Chris Wormley stated that, as quoted by Angelique Shingalis on Twitter a couple of days ago, he stated that, quote, O'Corn is a little more athletic than Wilton. You can see Spade try and scramble. It looks like it hurts. So obviously use some humor to interject in that situation. But I think that's a good telltale of what kind of different measures that O'Corn brings to his neck of the woods instead of what Spade does. Spade is your prototypical pocket passer, whereas O'Corn can be a little more athletic, can be used not as it's not like a Denard Robinson or Drew Henson type of dual threat, but you can expect him to be a little bit more athletic, using his legs, use some reads, do whatever need be to move the ball up or move the ball around, spread things around, try to set things up. Now, it could open up more risk, which could lead to more turnovers, but I think the coaches should have, there should be a reason why he's stuck around, because the coaches have confidence in him. Not to mention the fact that with Jim Harbaugh and quarterback coach Jed Fish, I believe. Especially with Harbaugh, who is a known quarterback whisperer. I mean, for goodness sake, he almost went to the Super Bowl with Alex Smith. Saw what he did with Jake Gridlock last year. You saw what he did with Spade this year. Who's to say that he can't get at least a decent game out of O'Corn this week and presumably next week against Ohio State? Well, on the subject of Ohio State, Michigan fans think, "Oh God, everything's over." Well, obviously, as you can see from the rankings, things are still in their favor. They still control their destiny. Went out and you're in. And correct me if I'm wrong, but didn't Ohio State win the national championship a couple years back?
Yes.
Even though they had one loss and they had to go to not one but two backup quarterbacks. So don't tell me it's not impossible. In fact, 7 of the last 10 national champions have had at least one loss. So to say, "Oh, you got to go undefeated to have a chance," is complete bullshit. So that's a 30% clip out of your last 10 national champions. So it's not that often. So it shows how really tough and difficult it is to go undefeated in a season. So to say that everything is doom and gloom is quite ridiculous to say, as was evident by these college football ranking we have coming up this week. And I think everybody's going to be geared up and ready to go for Ohio State. So let's tamper down on the doomsday scenarios for now, people.
Yeah, because almost everybody's no longer undefeated except Alabama and Western Michigan. So forget that. Focus on Indiana. Now, let's predict the outcome of this game here, this upcoming game. Ed, I'll let you go first. The spread, the over-under.
Spread's Michigan at the moment. Spread is Michigan minus 24. The over-under is 51. I think it's safe to say you would take the over, knowing what Michigan's offense can do, especially now they'll be more comfortable back at home, and knowing what defense has brought on a consistent basis this year. I expect it to be the same. I expect it to be, let's go Michigan 41.
Ed loses his reception here. I'm going to predict Michigan 33 and Indiana 13. I think Michigan is going to have a little bit of side effect. Just a minute. Michigan 43. So Ed has lost reception, and we're just going to wait it out. So again, the Hoosiers are 3-4 in the Big Ten, 5-5 overall. Looking at ESPN.com, gotta check and see if Michigan. Well, of course, Michigan has great odds to beat Indiana. The spread is 24. The over/under is 51. Yeah, Ed, I'm really sorry about this. Michigan 43 and Indiana. Ed, are you there?
Yeah, I can hear you. Was my score? Did anybody get my score in?
No.
What was your score?
Michigan 33 and Indiana 13, but I'll let you finish yours first.
Yeah, mine is 41-17.
Okay, thank
Sorry,
you.
I got that in before my feed cut off. I don't know what happened.
Yeah, I didn't. Actually, your feed cut off before you got Indiana 17, because I didn't hear diddly squat after you mentioned Indiana. When you try to mention how many points Indiana was going to score, Michigan 41 and Indiana, then it cut off. Just fucking hate when that happens.
Yep. I can't explain what's going on, but my connection's clear.
Oh, okay, yeah. Let's just make sure of that before we begin our broadcast. But yeah, Michigan does have great odds to win.
Of course, we said the same thing last week, but I think we should have more confidence about it this week.
Mm-hmm. Yep. Michigan's only allowed 244.7 yards. Indiana, 39.2. So Michigan apparently should have no problem taking care of the Hoosiers at the Big House in Ann Arbor. So yeah. So yeah. Now with Michigan football covered and out of the way, let's transition to Michigan Wolverines basketball.
For three, yes, sir.
They are now the Wolverines started their season 3-0. They beat Howard to tip off their season 76-58 at Chrysler Center on Friday. Then they beat IUPUI 77-65 in the same building. Those first two games were easy matchups for the Maize and Blue, led by John Beeline as head coach. But they both of them were not routes. And then earlier Thursday night, in the 2K Championship semifinals, they almost routed the Marquette Golden Eagles. They beat them 79-61. And the turnover margin was the turnover battle was unanimous. Michigan turned the ball over 16 times. Marquette 17 times. Michigan shot 50% flat from the floor. Marquette 40% flat. Michigan, the Wolverines shot 40.9% from three. Marquette 25% flat. The Wolverines out out-rebounded the Golden Eagles 36-27. Michigan was 16 of 20 from the free throw line. Marquette 13 of 18. So Michigan 80% flat. Marquette 72%. Personal fouls 19-17 Marquette. Those are all the team stats.
Here's a key stat that helped out Michigan this one. You know, they're not really known to be the team that does better than their opponents in the paint. But how about this? Michigan plus nine in total rebounds. They had 6 offensive rebounds compared to 4 for Marquette, and then the defense rebound 30 compared to Marquette's 23. So very good key that led to them winning this game. You know, like I said, John Beilein is not necessarily known to have teams to have a good physical presence within the paint. Hasn't necessarily had that since the days of Mitch McGarry and John Horford or Jordan Morgan, for that matter. You know, but seeing this was a very nice surprise. It could be a motivational thing to say, hey, you know, well, let's try to be not too predictable, which is live by the 3, die by the 3, which it worked for them tonight because they did shoot, like you mentioned, Taylor, they shot almost 41% from 3-point land, which is their, I guess you could say, their normal target of range. And they did a good job defending it by holding Marquette only 25% clip. So, very good win, very good start to the season. You kind of figured, you know, how would their defense look in terms of holding opponents certain scores when they face a little bit more legitimate competition, what they faced so far this season. Needless to say, there was a very, very, very good start because once again, they've yet to allow opponent to get over 65, let alone even get to 70. Very good win for the basketball Wolverines.
So they move on with that win. They move on to the 2K Classic Championship, which tips off Friday at 7. They will do battle with the Southern Methodist Mustangs, the SMU Mustangs. You messaged me, OSMU rather. That'll be a good one. Then next Wednesday at 5 on ESPNU, they tip off against the currently 3-0 South Carolina Gamecocks. First off, I want a scouting report on the Southern Methodist Mustangs, if you can.
Give me 1 second. I'm trying to wait for it. My browser to load up. SMU, you say SMU first, or do you want South Carolina?
How about SMU first? We got to go in chronological order.
Okay. What you need to know about SMU is that currently they're a team that does like to score. They're very prolific with their offense, averaging at 81.5 points per game, nearly shooting 50% from the field. They like to distribute the ball by averaging over 21 assists a game. And, of course, like I said, they seem to have the rebounding edge over Michigan with their season averages being a +8, 43.5 compared to Michigan's 35. And they face much more legitimate. I think you'd say not so much more compared to what Michigan has faced, but slightly more up to now, but slightly more legitimate. They faced Eastern Michigan. They faced Weber, among a couple of other teams. I believe they came off excuse me 1 second. So there's players to look out for. One being their best scorer, Simi Ojelaway. He's averaging a 22-point flat per game average. Shoots well over 50%. That is at 56.5. Very good at the line by averaging 82.4 free throws. And not to mention 11 rebounds a game. So that's the big guy to look out for overall. What Michigan needs to do, they need to, if he gets his, fine, but he can't be he's got to be the only one that contributes. If not, try to force someone else to beat you. Continue the method of, hey, hit your jump shots. but try to be a little bit more respectful in the paint. Those are the keys that I think they could follow if they want to get this win against SMU. Now, when you talk about what they need, possibly match against South Carolina, it's a little more comparable. Looks to be more of a slight easier task, even though it will be on the road. So far, South Carolina is only averaging 78.7 compared to Michigan's 76.5. Just not that far separation between these two teams. I already mentioned Michigan's field goal percentage team 48.8, 3.8. South Carolina is at exactly 46.8, so that's only a 3% difference. Any off night between both these teams could be the difference in this game. From a shooting standpoint, not that far away in assists per game, rebounds per game. Bad Michigan has the edge, having a 0.8 plus percentage. 0.8 percentage plus in the Department of Steals per game. They had 6.5 compared to South Carolina's 5.7. So, only thing that will bother me this is on the road. Michigan doesn't necessarily seem to be a team that does well away from Chrysler, against legitimate teams. But this will be a good test for them, I would say. Sindarius Thornwell will be the player to look out for Michigan. He's a guard, but he does pretty well for a guard. He averages 7 rebounds a game. He also it's very near excellent from the line of 89.5%, with his 20.3 points per game to go along with as well on almost 42% shooting. I think it's going to be a good guard matchup between Thornwell and what Derek Walton can provide, who, by the way, notched his first career double-double tonight in the win against Marquette. So those are definite keys to look out for when you compare it to those two potential big games. Well, not too big, but 2 games that Michigan have next on their radar between the SMU game and the South Carolina game.
So the 2K Classic Championship tips off Friday at 7, and the game against South Carolina next Wednesday tips off at 5 on ESPNU. The Wolverines are looking to take home that 2K Classic Championship and then try to stay undefeated as they try to beat the South Carolina Gamecocks. So that's it for Michigan basketball. Now we go back to the college football and transition to the Michigan State Spartans.
Touchdown, MSU!
They finally get their first Big Ten win of the season by hitting the lottery with a 49-0 win over the Rutgers Scarlet Knights at Spartan Stadium in East Lansing. The Spartans finally found their groove against a really terrible Rutgers team. They learned the easier way how to play more consistently, and they kept the rhythm going and kept rolling the whole way through, while Rutgers continued to always play against themselves. So just as important as they finally get their first Big Ten win, it's all about learning to play more consistently and developing more, and those things are mostly what the Spartans did. They also flashed out their old form.
It was very welcoming to see the defense look alive for once. The quarterback looking on point, making plays on both sides of the ball, getting turnovers, getting big gash plays that led to touchdowns or whatnot, as it ended up leading to what it saw on the score, and finally something for the home crowd to cheer for, as they got not just their first conference win, but the first home win since the Furman game, which is all the way back at the start of the year. So to say this was much needed was an understatement. A little bit of a sigh of relief. Say, hey, this whole year hasn't been a total disaster. It gives us a little bit something to look forward to for next year. Whereas the team, all these players, if anything, they're going to be coming back, assuming they don't transfer. The ones that aren't graduating, of course. And under Mark D'Antonio's leadership and coachability, obviously, I think we're going to see a much different and hopefully a much better Spartan team than what we saw. But they can't really relish in this victory for too long, because it could be potentially their first, only, and last Big Ten win of the year. I hate to say it because of the teams they have coming up in their schedule.
Yeah, that's inevitable. They're taking on a top dog
in the Ohio State Buckeyes, and then they're taking on another great team in the Penn State Nittany Lions. They've got no shot in getting Big Ten win number 2. That's for sure.
We can't say it's true, but we can't say it's impossible. I mean, there's a lot of things that we've thought, just in this last month, well, no, this whole year, that we thought would be impossible. They were thinking, oh, there's no way the Cubs are going to come back down 3-1 to even, get the Game 7, let alone win their first World Series in under 8 years. There's no way that Michigan, is a 20-plus point favorite, even if it's on the road, would drop the game that they had against Iowa. And there's even no way that Donald Trump would be elected president of the United States of America, but yet here we are. So to say it's impossible is, I think cutting it very short, selling it very short.
Yep, Donald Trump is already the president, but yep, sad but true for Michigan State. At least they're learning how to develop. And like you said, it's not impossible. Michigan State may still make most of it easy, make the most out of something, even in a losing cause. In both their last upcoming games, that could be more possible.
Yeah, and even use this as a learning tool for how they will be able to improve for next year. Not just these 2 games, but how use this whole season of, hey, don't take anything for granted. Play every single game as if you'll never play another one after that. That whole type of motivation BS. But it seems like they kind of needed the way they played, the way they just looked absolute lost, shell-shocked, just flat out dead in some areas. So maybe they need that kind of fire lit underneath their asses to give them that type of motivation. Hey, let's see what we can do these last 2 games, and then we'll come back better than ever for next year.
Yep. But looking at the team stats against Rutgers, total yards 440 to 149 MSU, 163 to 40 in passing, and 277 to 109 in rushing. The time of possession, MSU 35-37, Rutgers 24-23. Spartans fumbled the ball 3 times but recovered all of them. They still need to learn to hang on to and squeeze. They still need to learn to hang on to and squeeze the football. Third down conversions, though, MSU is 7 of 14. That's not bad. Rutgers just 3 of 12. Not quite terrible, but still pretty bad. MSU even converted on the only 4th down situation of the game, which is even better. That's another example of flashing out their old form. The individual
big crucial first.
Yeah, go ahead.
I was going to say, coming up with big crucial first downs when you need them, man. That 7 of 14 on 3rd down compared to what you've seen the Michigan State defense give up in recent weeks. To see the Michigan State offense turn around, do it to someone else for once would be quite refreshing, I'm sure, if you're a Spartan fan. Also, another mention the fact their defense finally getting stops of their own with in 3rd down conversions. Now, again, we kind of have to temper your excitement because what this is Rutgers. This is, let's be honest, a team and a school that has no business being in Big Ten Conference whatsoever. You saw what happened when they went up against Ohio State and Michigan. So that's a clear example of anything. So you can't get too excited. But hey, after what I'm not gonna poo-poo it because after a year like this, you'll take anyone you can get if you're a Michigan State fan.
Right.
I love it.
The individual box score now for MSU: Tyler O'Connor, 10 of 15 for 141 yards and 3 touchdown passes. L.J. Scott, 20 carries for 122 and a score. Madre London and Gerald Holmes, 9 carries for 52. London with 2 touchdowns, with two punch-ins. Freshman wide receiver Tristan Jackson, of all people, 2 catches for 67 yards. And Josiah Price, 2 scores on 3 receptions for just 13 yards. So forget the Rutgers box score because the Scarlet Knights, of course, are terrible. The Spartans' next game, as you mentioned, is against the Ohio State Buckeyes. That kicks off Saturday at noon on ESPN. J.T. Barrett OSU's top quarterback. He can come up with very tricky plays on offense at quarterback, especially when he tries to run it up the middle, and then when he sees somebody open, he just quick passes it to that open man, that open receiver in the end zone up the middle for a touchdown. I saw it once against Nebraska in Columbus on TV on ABC. I was like, wow, that's pretty smart. That's pretty tricky. That's something the Michigan Wolverines and the Michigan State Spartans especially have to watch out for.
Well, there's a lot of things Ohio State you've got to look out for, but that's definitely one aspect of it.
Yeah. Barrett is at 189 for 292 for 2,218 yards, 23 touchdown passes, and only 4 picks. Mike Weber, that's pretty damn good. That's very excellent. Mike Weber, 152 carries for 953 and 7 punch-ins. Curtis Samuel, 57 catches for 750 and 6 scores. Ohio State has a vicious defense as well, so the opposing offense had better get ready. Now, the keys to the game for Michigan State, they have to force pressure on defense, and they have to feed off their home crowd just for the hell of it, and play spoiler and be vintage. Explain those keys, Ed.
Yeah. Well, force pressure, it's simple. If anybody pay attention to how Penn State was able to get that upset win over Ohio State, it wasn't just that special teams play where, the block leads to scoop and scores, a lot of things. But one big reason was the pressure that Penn State's defense was able to bring, forcing Ohio State, forcing Barrett to just, linger around in the pocket in bad situations, which led to sack after sack. And sometimes they didn't even have to bring a blitz. They just brought 3 or 4 linemen on the play, and usually it ended up, thanks to good coverage, led up to a good sack. Now, granted, I don't think Michigan State's defensive line is nowhere near as stout as Penn State's. I think their only legit playmaker, not just on the line, but the whole defense, is Malik McDowell. But if you could find a way to use him as a sort of decoy, perhaps, it'll allow other players, other people on that line or in that front seven to get home and get to Barrett, cause that pressure. That could be a big benefit, and one reason that could help give this team a chance. Now, in terms of beating off the crowd, it's the last home game of the year, so they need to be pumped, if anything, to give this team a shot. And like I mentioned before, with forcing pressure, that easily could lead into beating off the crowd, because if you get a couple sacks here, and it puts you in a 3rd and long situation where the game is relatively close, you expect the crowd to get rowdier and rowdier, which could fuel the defense and in turn fuel the team. In terms of being vintage, well, it's simple. You got to go back to what made you I guess you could say, the slightly overachiever, but consistently straight terrific performer that we've seen in recent years on the Mark D'Antonio coach teams. Run the ball, play defense, be smart, and be disciplined. Can't have stupid penalties. You can't get, it comes down to 2nd and short, 3rd and short, even 4th down and 1 situations. You got to trust your line and trust your running back or whoever, or even your offensive coordinator. Call the right play, put your players in the right spots where you're going to get that yard or whatever, or you can establish your running game or make that critical key play. Keep drives going, keep churning clock. Don't keep Ohio State's offense off the field, and give your team as many good chances as possible to score points on your possessions to keep you in the game. That's essentially what needs to happen, and even then some, like a couple of luck, a play call that goes their way, a referee's judgment call. A player of Ohio State has an off day. Sometimes a little bit of luck goes along the way, but it's probably one of the big reasons why MSU is going to need all the help they can get at beating this very vaunted and stacked team.
Oh, yeah. Lot to watch out for. Now the prediction. This is going to be ugly. Ohio State, despite Michigan State's home crowd, I think the Buckeyes are going to roll. No doubt about it. All in all, I predict them to win 52-14. Ohio State's just too much for Michigan State this year.
Yeah, very true. And this is interesting because let's not forget, last year in their seemingly inexplicable run towards the college football playoff, Michigan State went to Columbus, walked in there, and walked out with a game-winning field goal. So, say the impossible, like I mentioned before, say the impossible can't happen is just flat out BS. I wouldn't be surprised if OSU rolls it back. I wouldn't be surprised if this turns out what happened against Wisconsin this year. But I'll be a little bit more respectful, saying, last home game of the year, they know what's on the line for them. I think Ohio State, they'll get the win, but it probably won't be too much of a blowout. I'll say OSU 30. Let's go OSU 41, MSU 27.
Oh, okay. Think the Spartans will score 27, huh? 13-point differential than my 14 for MSU. All right, well, we'll see what happens. Again, Saturday at noon on ESPN. Who knows what will happen, but still, the Buckeyes will win. At least almost big. But speaking of the Spartans, oh my God, their basketball team.
Valentine for the win!
They don't got it.
Is there something wrong with the athletic department these days? My goodness.
I know. First, their football team hitting almost rock bottom, and now their basketball team tipping off their season with a winless record, 0-2. They lost a close one when they were 12th ranked against 10th ranked the Arizona Wildcats in the Armed Forces Classic at Stan Sheriff Center in Honolulu, Hawaii. Then they get pounded in the State Farm Champions Classic, 69-48 by number 2 Kentucky, the Wildcats.
You're pathetic.
And I believe that was in Madison Square Garden in New York City as well. But anyway, I could be wrong. But anyway, what we learned is the Spartans cannot beat top 10 teams in college basketball this year, as of right now. But they sure as hell still have a chance to beat easier teams such as Mississippi State, Mississippi Valley State, and Florida Gulf Coast. MVSU is 0-3. Florida Gulf FGC is 1-1. Spartans may have a battle with Gulf Coast, but they've got to beat Mississippi Valley State. Please, I beg of you. That's their first. That's their first game of the season at Breslin Center. That tips off Friday at 7, and then they play Florida Gulf Coast Sunday at 7 on BTN. But Ed, your thoughts?
Well, if the football program was getting rock bottom, I guess you could say that the basketball program so far has been tombstoned. It's a little bit depressing. Not too depressing, but still just very uncomfortable and just flat out shocking in some instances to see. I wouldn't expect them to be world beaters, but I think they would have played a little bit more respect as their rankings would indicate and show. But granted, you got to give some credit to Kentucky. John Calipari has coached up and created a machine up there. So it would have been a little bit too much to hope for a win, but you would have thought, hey, Michigan State, the reputation they've created for themselves the past 2 decades, time as it was watched, would have been at least a little bit more respectable outing, a little bit better showing than what we got. 2 for 13, I believe they went from 3-point range, only just shooting under 20% for 3-point percentage total compared to 33.3% for Kentucky, and turning the ball over too many times. 20 turnovers against Kentucky is recipe for disaster every single time, no matter which way you cut it. So those 2 factors more than anything. Also the fact that Doug is just a much better finely tuned machine in them anyway. But all those leads into what was expected, which was a bad blowout loss.
Yeah, MSU was not nearly ready for Kentucky when they were 13th ranked going into that game. Kentucky was ranked second. They were a machine, no doubt, but MSU, the Spartans, man, were they almost flat. They tried to fight it. They did. I'll give them something, but man, they sure looked bad out there. Kentucky looked very good, as they should. MSU obviously had looked bad in their second game of the season. It's just horrible to see that. To see MSU get outmatched like that. But I thought MSU would have brought a little more to the table, but they didn't. They still would have lost anyway, but they still would have, could have, and should have brought at least a little bit more.
Yeah, you were hoping
they lost by 21.
A little bit more.
Yeah, they lost by 21. That's it. Oh, drat. I think I'm losing reception.
I can hear you.
Yep, okay. Yep, go ahead.
I was going to say, you just let this shit a little bit better fight. You were probably expecting a loss, just weren't expecting them to get that dominated. So here's the hoping that between now and whenever, between now and Duke, they'll have their crap together, because if they played the way they played against Kentucky against Duke, it's going to be a massacre. And it's in Cameron, too, so look out.
Yeah, absolutely. So again, they have Mississippi Valley State 0-3 at home Friday at 7. They're home against Florida Gulf Coast at the Breslin Center Sunday at 7 on BTN. Then they travel to St. John's 2-0 Wednesday at 7 before they have their next 5 days off. Then a week from Tuesday, they go to Duke and play number 1, the Blue Devils. A week from Tuesday at 9:30 on ESPN, Duke got upset by Kansas, number 7 Kansas Jayhawks this past Tuesday. Very, very, very interesting finish at the end, but those were just two top dogs, 2 top 10 teams battling out very, very epically in epic proportions.
On Michigan State's level this year. That's all.
Yeah, way above as of right now. So, that's all for Michigan State athletics. Now it's time for my MAC Roundup, starting with my Central Michigan Chippewas football team.
Touchdown, Central Michigan!
The Chippewas had to barely hang on. 27-20, they win over the Ohio Bobcats at Kelly Short Stadium in Mount Pleasant to become bowl eligible once again. The Chips had to be very desperate to try to get a bowl game on their 2016 schedule. They jumped out to a 17-0 lead and led 17-3 at halftime, and then they had to hang on as the Ohio Bobcats came back but fell just a touchdown short. Ohio turned the ball over 4 times before CMU lost a fumble with over a minute to go, giving the Cats one last drive toward the end zone, and Central's defense stood tall, and freshman running back Sean Bunting came up with the interception. Central Michigan's rushing department is still missing junior running back Devin Spalding, and although Jare Hayes is leading in rushes and rushing yards, he's not stepping up much either. He got himself 24 carries for just 47 yards last night. Nobody has been stepping up in the backfield since Devin Spalding got injured. Speaking of not overcoming adversity, the running department had totaled up to 31 carries for just 18 yards, including a negative 27 for senior quarterback Cooper Rush. Devin Spalding this season has 120 rushes for 652 yards and just 3 touchdowns to show for it.
Oh, man!
Still no word whatsoever on when he's coming back from his injury. I'll get word from the play-by-play announcer, Don Shido, in messages on Facebook because he and I are friends, and we've seen each other in person once before in one of my classes at CMU, sports broadcasting class actually, BCA 515. But CMU got their win, back to the game, and became bowl eligible. Team stats, total yards, Ohio 357, CMU 286, time possession, Bobcats 32 minutes and 30 seconds. Chippewas 32 minutes and 30 seconds, Bobcats 27-30. Penalties, Central Michigan 5 for 48 yards, Ohio 2 for 20. The rest of the box score looks like this. Cooper Rush, 23 of 35 for 268 yards and 2 touchdown passes. No interceptions, much better. That's what I like to see. Corey Willis, 8 receptions for 109 yards. That's not bad. Amari Coleman led the defense with 8 tackles, all of them solo. For the Ohio Bobcats, quarterback Quinton Maxwell threw 16 of 36, which is not good or not good, but not terrible, but 16 of 36, kind of the cutoff, for 208 yards, one scoring pass, and 1 pick. The game-sealing pick, that is, caught by Sean Bunting. Dorian Brown, 12 carries for 91 and a score. Sebastian Smith, 4 catches for 92. Quentin Poling, 8 tackles, 7 of them solo. Next game for CMU, they are in Ypsilanti Tuesday at 7 on ESPNU with the evenly matched Eastern Michigan Eagles. The tail of the tape looks like this. Cooper Rush, 233 for 381 for 3,043 yards, 23 touchdowns and 12 interceptions. Only 1 in his last 2 games, which is very good. The rushing game without the injured Devin Spalding has been horrible, especially with that very weak offensive line. But the running game has to make better decisions, as bad as the offensive line is. Corey Willis leads the receivers with 61 catches for 889 yards and 9 touchdowns. For Eastern Michigan, Brogan Roback, 167 for 289 for 2,039 yards. 14 touchdowns, 5 interceptions. Ian Erickson, 175 carries for 741 and 9 scores. Sergio Bailey II, that's junior, Sergio Bailey Jr., 49 receptions for 695 yards and 5 scores. The defense, CMU outranks, defensively, Central outranks Eastern in yards allowed, 361.5 for CMU to 439.8 allowed by Eastern. So my prediction, CMU's poor running game and the weakening of the offensive line and the EMU's lack of defense are going to blend in along with the Chippewas' offensive receiving department, including Corey Willis, and the much improved passing of Cooper Rush. But then again, maybe even the Chippewas' backfield may take advantage of the Eagles' defensive front's mistakes, leaving holes, allowing Northern Illinois to score long touchdowns from this past Wednesday, which I will get to next. But my prediction, it's on the road, but I think CMU will pull it off by 3 points, 34-31. Ed, what are your thoughts?
Bold score. I think you're leaning towards more to your heart rather than your head in this situation. I did correctly guess that I think Central. I'm sticking by my guns that I think Central will win. Central did win against Ohio, but something tells me they would lose to Eastern. I'm not abandoning that now. I think Eastern will use what they went through against Northern Illinois as a motivational tool. Say, hey, we got to find a way. You got to finish these assholes off while we got the chance. And I think you'll see a much more better performed, much more mentally focused Eastern Michigan team get the win. I just that like you mentioned before, the lack of a rushing attack and a bad offensive line, it's just going to cripple. It's just going to hurt CMU even more, as we come to the end of the year here. So my score here, I'd say Eastern, they'll learn from mistakes, they'll get the win, 35-21, or 35-24 rather.
CMU?
Yeah, Eastern wins 35-24.
Oh, man.
Oh, man.
Yep.
All right. Well, speaking of the Eastern Michigan Eagles, they jumped out to a 21-0 lead at halftime, but the Northern Illinois Huskies, led by junior running back Jordan Huff, came back in the third quarter with 24 unanswered points to take the lead early in the fourth quarter, only to have Eastern tied on a 24-yard field goal courtesy of freshman place kicker Paul Fricano with 2 seconds or 1 second left. It would go to overtime. Then Jordan Huff would punch one in from 2 yards out on the first drive of overtime to give NIU the lead, and then the Eagles' offense would fail to convert as Blake Banham would dive only for a full yard short of the first down line on fourth down and 2 yards to gain. And the way I saw it, he just nonchalantly dove only for that full yard short, just because he had two Husky defenders in front of him to make the tackle, to make the double tackle and seal the game. He could have just at least stayed up and tried to either pull his weight together against those two Husky defenders or try to make a move. But he decided to push the quit button and pull the self-destruct trigger for the Eastern Michigan Eagles. And I thought that was despicable. So Northern Illinois hangs on to win 31-24 in overtime. Eastern drops to 6-5 and 3-4 in the MAC. Same record CMU football has. Team stats for that game: total yards 485 for the Huskies, 475 for the Eagles. Very, very close. Time of possession: Eastern 34:03, Northern Illinois 25:57. First downs: Eastern 32, NIU 20. Third down attempts: Huskies 10 of 20, Eagles 9 of 18. The box score reads for EMU: Roback 17 of 38 for 184 yards, a score and 2 picks, plus 12 carries on quarterback keepers for 65 yards. Ian Erickson, 30 rushes for 171 yards and 2 scores, plus 4 catches for 48. Kyle Rockwall, 11 tackles, 4 solo defensively. Now for NIU, Daniel Santa Catarina, just 5 of 15 for 103 yards. That's terrible. A touchdown and an interception, plus 13 carries for 91 yards. Ryan Graham, 6 of 10 for 58 yards. Santa Catarina might have been injured, or either that or they must be platooning quarterback positions. Jordan Huff, the player of the game, 23 rushes for 173 yards and 3 touchdowns, including the game winner. He was the ultimate key to the Northern Illinois Huskies comeback. Aregaros Turner, 3 receptions for 84 and a score. The Northern Illinois Huskies are now in third place in the MAC West Division with a 4-3 conference record, despite their 4-7 record overall. So there's that. Now to college basketball. The Central Michigan Chippewas improved to 3-0. First, they pancaked the Indiana Kokomo Cougars at McGurk Arena 117-54. They got a road win, 86-74 86-74 over the Tennessee Tech Golden Eagles. And then earlier Thursday night, they beat Marygrove College big time, 107-58 back at home at McGurk in Mount Pleasant at CMU. Just another easy game for my Chippewas to clobber. Another easy opponent for my Chippewas to clobber. Their upcoming games, they tip off the Lone Star Showcase in Austin, Texas versus the Pepperdine Bulldogs Monday at 8:30. Then they tip off with St. Bonaventure Tuesday at 6. And Little Rock, Arkansas, Wednesday at 8:30. That's their upcoming schedule for this week. For Eastern Michigan, they're 1-2. Not doing so hot, but they're home against Gardner Webb, 0-2 Friday at noon. Eastern should beat them. Then they're home against Madonna University Wednesday at 2. Now back to college football. The aforementioned 21st ranked Western Michigan Broncos football. We already predicted Western was going to clobber Buffalo. That's this Saturday. The Bulls are 2-7. The Broncos, I predicted the Bulls 56-0. And what score did you predict the Broncos to beat the Bulls again last week on our podcast?
To be honest, it's such a formality in my mind. I can't remember. So if I got it wrong from last week or whatever, but I'll just go. This is for this upcoming weekend, correct?
Yep.
Let's just go. If they want to impress people, make they solidify their spot of even more getting to an eventual New Year's Six bowl. I think they're going to run up the score. So let's go Western 65-3.
Yeah. No doubt about that one. Yeah.
Keep on rolling that boat, gentlemen.
Yep. Keep growing together, says J.P. Fleck. So the Broncos basketball team just barely beat Marygrove College 90-74, whereas CMU crushed Marygrove earlier tonight, 107-58 at McGurk Arena. Then the Broncos went into Oakland University, and lost to the Golden Grizzlies 77-60. So the Broncos obviously fall to 1-1. Don't count those Golden Grizzlies out. They're very good in the Horizon League. Western going to have a really tough task on their hands. They're at Villanova against the number 3 Wildcats Thursday at 11:30 a.m. on ESPN2. Actually, that game got over with. They lost, of course. Let me check ESPN.com for that final score. Come on, baby. Okay, where is it? 76-65. Villanova at home fends off Western Michigan. Broncos shoot 50% flat from the floor. Wildcats 51.1 from the floor. Pretty much even. Broncos were just 18.8% from 3. Villanova 39.1% from 3. The Broncos out-rebounded the Wildcats 30-22. Whoa.
Oh, man.
But they turned the ball over 18 times, whereas Villanova turned the ball over 12 times. The Broncos must have given them a really good fight. Uh, 22 personal fouls for the Broncos, 17 for the Wildcats. The Wildcats shot 79.2% from the free throw line. The Broncos 85.7% from the stripe. Western Michigan Broncos basketball's next game here. Trying to look here. Is later today versus UTEP 1-1, the UTEP Miners at 3:30 on ESPN3 and the Watch ESPN mobile app and ESPN.com. Then they're off until a week from Saturday when they host Central Arkansas 0-2 at 2 o'clock on ESPN3. Speaking of the Oakland Grizzlies, the aforementioned Oakland Grizzlies, they are tied for first place in the Horizon League because they beat the Bowling Green Falcons 78-70. And they beat those Broncos, like I mentioned before, 77-60 at home. They tip off against Goshen Friday at 7 and Chicago State Saturday at 3. Both those games are at home at Oakland University. The Detroit Mercy Titans basketball team is in a 6-way tie for fourth place in the Horizon League. They tipped off with a 99-69 win easily over Adrian to start a 4-game road. Then they started a 4-game road trip with a horrible loss, 107-78 at Eastern Tennessee State. They'll travel to Illinois 3-0 Friday at 8. Then they'll tip off with the Florida State Seminoles, who are 2-0, also undefeated, Sunday at 5 on the ACC network. Then they take on another undefeated team, New Hampshire, 2-0, Wednesday at 2. So that is it for college basketball, and that is it for college sports. Now we go to the pros, and we touch on the Detroit Lions.
Touchdown, Detroit Lions!
They had their bye week last Sunday, and it appeared all three of the other NFC North teams lose, which means the Lions are tied with the Minnesota Vikings for first place in the division at 5-4-0.
I love it!
And also, when you factor in that the Lions beat the Vikings head-to-head earlier, that gives them the tiebreaker edge, meaning that if you want to go technicality, the Lions, yes, the Detroit Lions are in first place in the NFC North Division.
I find that hard to believe, but except considering the fact that Matthew Stafford's a really damn good quarterback, and so are his receivers.
Like an MVP here, bailing your asses out, all the wins on game-winning drives come from behind drives where you got to lead your team down the field. Your defense also helps you out in a couple of instances, like Darius Slay against Philly, the interception against the Rams the very next week. Other things do add up. But like I said, if it wasn't for Matthew Stafford, we wouldn't be in this spot right now. Obviously, other things do help out. Minnesota's looking like to be an absolute free fall right now. The Bears just are absolute puke garbage. And the Packers, though, what the hell is going on with the Packers? You wonder. Is there trouble in Lambeau Land? Is there going to be a parting of ways soon between Mike McCarthy? Is he even getting along with Aaron Rodgers? All those things have led to the fact that, hey, the Lions, they're in a prime spot as anybody because they seem to be the most glued together unit as possible. Yeah, they had trouble, they had issues. Stafford was F-bombing Golden Tate on the sideline after miscommunication a few weeks back, but they seem to obviously have gotten past that. It's just like recently Tate scoring the game-winning touchdown in overtime against the Vikings. There doesn't seem to be an issue between coaches and the quarterback, or coaches and key players. They seem to be as together a unit as possible amongst the other teams in the NFC North. So it leads to a spot where if you don't win this division, there's no excuse. If you don't win, that should be Jim Caldwell's final act. Show him the damn door if you somehow manage to blow this.
Yeah, the Vikings have lost 4 straight. The Packers have lost 3 straight. It's costing them first place in the NFC North, and it opened the door for the Lions right there. The Lions got very lucky by winning with their bye week by not playing after stunning the Vikings the week before in overtime 22-16 at the new U.S. Bank Stadium, in which the Vikings have one hell of a home crowd. The Lions beat them in that stadium.
Wow.
Yeah, wow is right. Triple wow is what I'm saying. I still can't get my mind out of that. Get that out of my mind. I still just can't. That is incredible. So, question now is, can they hold it up? But first, let's look at the injury report. Linebacker DeAndre Levy has returned to practice for the first time since week 1, still listed as questionable with his knee injury. Theo Riddick with his ankle injury, and Ezekiel Ansah also questionable with his. But this is one of our 10 questions at the end of this episode. DeAndre Levy on whether he will return or not. But he is progressing. That's one thing we know for sure.
Very. It's the most progress we've seen since, like you mentioned, with week 1. So we'll take it as it comes along.
Yeah, still got to play it safe. Now, some news here. Matthew Stafford was wanting a contract extension. Was it $25 million?
Well, it's rumored. It hasn't been confirmed by anybody. In fact, when Stafford was asked about it in the press conference this week, he said, it was news to him. So you wonder if that's a little bit of smoke and mirrors. But if to go by the official, what the report says, it will be let's see, after the end of next year, it will be give him a salary of $25 million a year, which I believe would be the richest contract in NFL history. I really wouldn't have a problem with Stafford getting any type of contract reconstruction or extension or whatever, because the way he's played this year, he deserves practically every damn penny that he's set to make, and then some. So knowing where you would be without him, I'd say give the man his damn money.
Mm-hmm. Yep. Now for their upcoming game at hand. They return to Ford Field and play the 2-7 Jacksonville Jaguars Sunday at 1 on CBS. The Jacksonville Jaguars only have one road win under their belts, and they are in last place in the AFC South. They suck, as bad as the Buccaneers do on their home field, although they won their last home game. They're 1-5 at home. But the Jaguars have lost 4 straight going into this upcoming game and currently have a negative 14 turnover margin. And neither team has had a running back that has rushed for 300 yards or more thus far this season. Both teams have to get their running games going. The Lions' defensive front, though, has only allowed 107.0 yards allowed, outmatching the Jaguars' defensive front, which has allowed 124 flat yards allowed. Both teams offensively, on the other hand, have better passing games than their rushing games. Your thoughts?
Yeah, the key to this game is not going to be who wins the running game, because, like I said, both these teams, as mentioned, both these teams are very below average in terms of having any sums of a running game. It's not even going to be the match of who has the better quarterbacks battle, because we know what Stafford can bring to the table. Blake Bortles has not had a quite as good year as some would hope, but you never know the way this Lions defense looks sometimes. If you can make Case Keenum look like a future Hall of Famer, then I shudder what then all bets are off, essentially. But really what's going to come down to is who wins the turnover margin. Like you mentioned before with Jacksonville's, what was there, -11, -14 in the turnover ratio department?
Oh, yeah.
Yeah, that's going to be a big key. And if the Lions could stay off of that, and just wait for the opportunity to come, most likely they can get a takeaway, especially in front of a raucous home crowd that knows what goal is seemingly now, which was thought to be unlikely early in the year with a 1-3 start, but now seems now within reach, within grasp. So you expect the home crowd to fuel the defense, which could lead to a possible turnover on the part of Jacksonville. So winning the turnover margin will be key. Another one, like I mentioned before, I alluded to with how the line secondary and the linebackers, the way seemingly whether it be Keenum making 20 straight completions, Kirk Cousins who I think is a solid player, but not as good as the Lions defense made him out to be. Just the secondary just being absolutely forced this year on a few occasions. You need better secondary play. You need to get off the field on third down. And then, again, like I mentioned before, find a way to get a turnover, get an interception or whatever. But better secondary play is key, not just for this game, but really for the rest of the season, knowing that you're going to be facing Aaron Rodgers again at the end of the year. He's still an Aaron Rodgers, so I don't put it past him to light you up like he did in Lambeau early in the year. And the third key of anything, watch for the trap, because as great as things do look, you're in first place. Stafford looks like an MVP candidate. We might be getting DeAndre Levy back. Always watch out for the trap. This has the sneaking suspicion of a possible vintage classic SOL, same old Lions type of trap game where you lose to a team you have absolutely no business losing to. It's a critical game because, there's also a trap game in a sense because, remember, Minnesota is coming into town for Thanksgiving, and it will be essential for the Lions to win that game to just further distance themselves between them and Minnesota. But they can't look ahead. They cannot get too overconfident. They have got to focus on the opponent that's ahead of them now, and that is the Jacksonville Jaguars. So watch for the trap. This could be a very big problem if they don't. But if they keep their heads on right, they should be able to take care of business. It's a very lowly Jacksonville Jaguar squad.
Yeah, we remember the Lions blowing their short lead against the Tennessee Titans on their first home game of 2016 and losing 16-15 on a game-winning touchdown. And Matthew Stafford threw an interception to seal it for the Tennessee Titans and seal the first loss for the Detroit Lions. And that read SOL all over it. And the Lions need to make sure that never happens again this season against the Jacksonville Jaguars. Speaking of traps, this is another one.
Do we have the score ready? The prediction for the score?
I'm going to say, well, let's get to the individual statistical matchup on offense first. The tail of the tape looks like this. Stafford, 214 of 318 for 2,373 yards, 18 touchdowns, and only 5 picks. For Jacksonville, Blake Bortles at quarterback, 228 of 380 for 2,421 yards, 16 touchdowns, 11 interceptions. At running back, Theo Riddick, even though he's questionable, he still leads 75 carries for 297 yards and only 1 score. TJ Yeldon for Jacksonville, the Jaguars, 79 for 285 and only 1 score. And finally, in the receiving department, Marvin Jones for Detroit, 37 catches for 661 and 4 scores. And for the Jaguars, Allen Robinson, 48 for 549 and 5 scores. Now, according to the ESPN.com, as we near the prediction, 68.2% say the Lions will win. The spread is 7 points, and the over-under is 48 points. My prediction: the Lions, if they are more alert of the trap, they should win 31-17. Your turn.
I want to say this is a comfortable win, but I'm just not so certain of that yet. So I'll just say it's just coming down to the wire. I expect the Lions to do what they need to do. Pull out a close win. I say they get it done 20-13. 20-17,
yeah.
Actually.
2017, yeah. Either one, but 20 to 17 is what you last came up with. I'll go with that. Yes, and I do agree with you on that one. I do, really. There's always this trap game. It's going to haunt you whether you win or lose.
But as long as you get the win, that's what matters most.
Yes. And then you'll improve to 6-4 and stay in first place in the NFC North. Period. That's what matters. So with the Lions out of the way, and we got all the football out of the way now, college and pro. Now it's time to transition to hockey. The Red Wings here. Well, before they went to Montreal, they lost Andreas Athanasiou to a sprained left knee, which he suffered. He will be out 1 to 2 weeks. And the Red Wings finally call up Anthony Mantha. And they finally had a change of heart, I'd say, but I could be wrong, but they finally called up Anthony Mantha. Mantha worked hard, even in a 5-0 losing cause in Montreal to the Canadiens, and then he got an assist in a 4-3 loss at Joe Louis Arena in regulation to the Tampa Bay Lightning, of all people, when the Red Wings had that one chance for revenge. But the Red Wings played absolutely terrible, especially the veterans, and they didn't. They had a few scoring chances, but Carey Price shut them out. But plus defensively, the Red Wings were getting the hell beat out of them, and they also made a very costly mistake. Committed a very costly penalty. Steve Ott, for example, man, bad penalty, causing Shea Weber to score the Canadians' third goal on the power play. That's just typical Steve Ott right there. That's just a dumb, cheap shot, if you will. That should never happen. That's Steve Ott for you. Ken Holland signed to a 1-year, $900,000 contract. Yeah. What about Applicator?
I'm sure he liked the effort shown on that one with his stupid ass. He's known for making dumbass penalties in his heyday.
Yeah, Justin Applicator. What a fucking puke. Both of them are fucking pukes to me. To us. But back to the Lightning game. The Red Wings gave up a game-winning goal to Nikita Kucherov with 1:10 left in the third period. A shot from the blue line was blocked by Drew Miller, but Darren Helm stood there like a statue as it bounced off of Drew Miller right to Nikita Kucherov, and he one past Peter Mrazek for Kucherov's second goal of the night, the game winner. Lightning win 4-3 in regulation. Mrazek giving up 4 goals in yet another game. Mrazek still continues to struggle, but so does the defense is definitely not bailing him out. They continue to push the self-destruct button by making those stupid mistakes.
Constantly taking bad penalties too.
Bad penalties, yep. Mistakes, penalties. There's no doubt about it. Everybody sees it.
Yeah, and once again showcasing their vintage way to just choke away the game late in the third period. I don't know if it's holding on to a lead or trying to get close or having the game tied. It wasn't really a surprise to me when, like I said, I'm so numb to them having choke job after choke job in the third period. I was like, okay. So when Tampa scored that last goal, I was like, of course that happens. It always happens like this. And this is after they lost their captain Steven Stamkos early on in the game due to the lower body injury. So it's laughable.
Out at least 4 months.
At the same time.
Out at least 4 months with left knee tendonitis. Is that what it is?
God.
Man.
Oh, man.
Speaking of injuries, though, Darren Helm will be out at least 6 weeks with a dislocated shoulder.
I was going to mention that.
And,
Surgery is not required, though, but he'll be out a while, 6 weeks. The team, therefore, has called up also Tyler Bertuzzi from the Grand Rapids Griffins again. So they're going to need Bertuzzi to use Darren Helm's speed.
Mm-hmm.
And they're going to have to carry all that to their upcoming schedule, which is at Verizon Center against the 9-4-2 Washington Capitals, who have 20 points. 4th place in the Metropolitan Division. Friday at 7 on Fox Sports Detroit Plus. Alexander Ovechkin, Braden Holtby, the Vezina Trophy winner. Other guys to watch out for.
Also, quick correction, by the way. Now they must have played tonight and got a win, but Washington now at 10-4-2 with 22 points. It must have gotten another win.
Thank you for the update. Yeah, you're a little far away from your microphone.
Mm-hmm. But you heard the update, correct?
Yep, I did. Yep. Yeah, it was still on air. 10-4-2 with 22 points. Still in 4th place in the Metropolitan Division. I couldn't hear that last part. I missed it.
No, nothing about the division. Just mentioning the update on Washington's record and the points they have so far.
Gotcha. All right. So NHL.com has it. Friday at 7 on Fox Sports Detroit Plus. Then they're home against the Calgary Flames. Let me check NHL.com real quickly. Division. Last I printed 6-10-1 for the Flames, and now they're 7-10-1 with 15 points. They got their overtime win at home at the Scotiabank Saddledome the night before on Wednesday night against the Arizona Coyotes, 2-1 in overtime. The Calgary Flames 7-10-1 with 15 points, still 5th place in the Pacific Division. The Capitals, by the way, 2nd place in the Metropolitan Division, a tie for 2nd place between them and the Pittsburgh Penguins, who are also 10-4-2. So that changed up on me. But one thing that hasn't changed up on me is the Buffalo Sabres. The Sabres, 5-8-4, still 14 points, still in last place, 8th place in the Atlantic Division. Wings host the Flames Sunday at 7:30 on Fox Sports Detroit, and then they visit the Sabres Wednesday at 7 on Fox Sports Detroit Plus. Speaking of the Grand Rapids Griffins, they're on a 4-game winning streak. They beat the Cleveland Monsters 5-4 in a 2-1 4-round shootout at Van Andel Arena. Anthony Mantha scored a goal and a shootout goal, and Evgeny Svechnikov scored the game-winning shootout goal. Tyler Bertuzzi was continued to be red hot for GR. They shut out the Rockford IceHogs 3-0 at home. They went into Milwaukee and edged the Admirals 4-3 in overtime at Bradley Center. Then they went back home, came back home to the Van and doubled up the Texas Stars 6-3 on Tuesday night rather. Yeah, I was right the first time. They're home against the Stars, the Texas Stars that is, again, Friday at 7 on ESPN 961. Then they go back to Milwaukee and play the Admirals again Wednesday at 8 on News Radio Wood 1300 and 106.9 FM. So that's it for the Red Wings and the Griffins. Now to the Pistons.
Left sideline, 3, and he answers.
They went into San Antonio to continue their 4-game road trip. They lost by 10, 96-86 at AT&T Center. Gave it a good fight, but still, despite holding the Spurs to under 100 points, they only came up with 86. And
not a good showing from the backcourt in that game. Once again, showing how desperately missed Reggie Jackson is. But they at least managed to hold Kawhi Leonard in check. On the most part, he had only 17 points, but he was 4 from 5 from 3-point range. So Definite improvements that they need to get to, but not too much of a bad showing, knowing that you're facing one of the absolute top teams in the league.
That's correct. Yep. So from there, they went into Denver, and they finally got their first road win, 106-95 over the Nuggets.
I love it.
Then they returned home and won their second straight, 104-88 on Monday night over the Oklahoma City Thunder at the Palace without Andre Drummond, who had a sprained right ankle. When I saw that game, the Pistons were defending their 3-point line much better in that game, and they stay undefeated at home.
Yeah, giving up only under 20% of that. They held Oklahoma City to 18.5% for 3-point range. And even though they knew essentially the only way that the Oklahoma City had a chance of being was if Russell Westbrook really went off. He had a very strong first half. I think he had 25 points, but he was held in check for the rest of the way, finishing with only 33, meaning he only scored under 10 points, scored 8 points, in fact, in the second half. So very good job by Detroit's defense keeping OKC's best player in check.
Yeah, and when I mean defending the 3-point line, you mean I meant the Pistons were getting in front of those opposing 3-point shooters, and they actually did. And then they
and it showed.
Yep. And then they went to Madison Square Garden and went back to not defending their own arc and getting out-rebounded again. They still made it a close one, but still they lost 105-102 to the Knicks, and they fell to 1-5 on the road. It's just
one thing that didn't help was Kristaps Porzingis, who is, by the way, coming into his own as one of the future superstars to positive look out for in the league. He had a very big night with 35 points. So that, when you look in the grand scheme of things, that was one big key that led to the Knicks getting the victory. Was Porzingod, as some like to refer to as a nickname. He just went off, and the Pistons didn't have anything to do for them to stop it.
Yeah, they didn't cover him. But speaking of Porzingis, I got a tweet earlier this week from Justin Spiro, a beat writer from the Detroit Sports Nation, a former co-host and managing editor of the Detroit Sports Rag. He tweeted, Kristaps Porzingis was a power forward that the Pistons should have gone for in the draft, in the 2003 draft pick, the 2003 draft pick, when they picked Darko Milicic instead. And Milicic was only a reserve bench player.
I'm sure. I think basically Porzingis essentially what Darko, his true potential, what some people hoped it could be, but this is the true potential realized in more ways than one. Because Porzingis just looks, wow, the kid's got a lot of upside.
Yeah, Pistons should have claimed him in 2003.
I don't know. I guess they're mentioning to the 2003 draft. I think that was possible because obviously he wasn't old enough.
Yeah, that's what I mentioned.
But I guess if you mean looking for the spot or looking for a similar player, sure.
Yeah, that's what I meant. Yeah.
Yeah, but one thing that didn't help, besides Porzingis going off of 35 points, like you mentioned, Taylor, them being out-rebounded again, plus 13. Yikes!
Oh.
This is a team that wants to be as a team that controls inside the paint. You can't do that if you're getting out-rebounded plus 13 by double digits.
That's right. Got to do better in the rebounding category. But especially Aaron Baines. Especially Aaron Baines. He can't rebound or even corral the damn basketball with or without Drummond in the game, besides Baines' 20 points against the Thunder, which is a reason why the Pistons keep getting out-rebounded by their opponents. At least Aaron can score more points in Drummond's absences, but you got to corral that damn basketball. You got to you got to come up with a lot more rebounds than that.
I know they don't want to drain out Boban Marjanovic by having him come off the bench more and more, but with his size and what he gives you potentially in the paint,
yeah, he made 2 blocks.
In my opinion, yeah, it gets you blocks. Obviously, gives you better presence, gives you better rim protection, especially if you don't have Drummond out there or certain situations. So yeah, I wouldn't mind throughout the course of the season, right? Give Boban some more minutes,
yeah,
and peel back Aaron Baines more.
Yeah, because Aaron Baines looks like a dumb caveman out there on the court. No offense, but Aaron Baines doesn't even know what the fuck is going on here out there.
Well, we've been saying that for over a year now, so that shouldn't be too much of a surprise.
Right. Aaron Baines should have been cut. And he still should be cut.
Maybe he will. Maybe he will after this year, and they just decide not to bring him back when his contract expires.
Or how about this? Maybe they should send him down to the NBA Development League, and maybe he can develop his corralling the basketball and coming up with more rebounds from there. Maybe that'll help.
Develop a better defense.
Yeah, definitely. And this has nothing to do with his hair, okay? He can do whatever he wants with it. Sure, he looks like Jabba Chamberlain was when Chamberlain was off in that Tigers bullpen last calendar year and the year before in the second half before the Tigers released him. But Baines is not quite as bad as Chamberlain was. But Andre Drummond, let's get to him. 18 of 27 from the free throw line in his last 5 games. 17 of 25 in the first 4 in that span before he went 1 for 4 in the last 2. But he's still on a roll.
Still quite impressive trajectory the way he's at right now. You could say, if he keeps this up, I think it's safe to say he finishes at least right at, if not slightly over, 50%, or at least close to 50% this year. Because last year he was at 35. So if he makes a full blown improvement, goes plus 10. So say for instance, he finishes close to 50% shooting from the line. Granted, if you want to look at it in terms of how an average NBA player looks, that looks bad. But compared to where Drummond has been, it'll be a far better improvement from what we saw in the past couple of years.
Mm-hmm. Yep. So hopefully he keeps that up. Now, Contavious Caldwell-Pope is scoring a lot more points, and he's been on a roll. Tobias Harris and Marcus Morris have still been doing their thing. Plus, on the bench, we got, like I mentioned, we still got to see a little more of Boban Marjanovic, who made a couple blocks on Monday, but the scoring continues to be better with KCP, Tobias Harris, and Marcus Morris.
Mm-hmm.
Let's hope that keeps up.
Yeah, especially while we wait for Reggie Jackson to get back from injury.
And speaking of Reggie Jackson, he participated earlier this week in 5-on-5 non-contact drills in practice. He's likely still a couple weeks away from the returning to the lineup. In other words, though, the positive news is his return to the starting lineup is still on schedule.
I love it!
Yeah, he's on track, so if things go as well as planned. We're thinking, maybe before Christmas, if not after Christmas, he gets back? Most likely?
More like after the beginning of December, if it stays on schedule. That's the news I read.
Mm-hmm. So, like I said, that was looking like to be a before or after Christmas type of thing.
It's got to be before. It's not a...
Mm-hmm.
It can't be after. We're playing it safe, but it sure as hell is not going to be after. It's sometime before. We're going to make it like in the middle of December to range it, just to be fair.
Either way, he should be back before the calendar turns to 2017.
That's true. That's one thing we know for sure. Yeah. So the Pistons start a 5-game homestand fight against the defending NBA champion Cleveland Cavaliers at 7:30. That's a marquee game we got to watch for. Another marquee game, the Boston Celtics, Saturday at 7. Monday against the Houston Rockets, Wednesday against the Miami Heat, and a week from Friday against the LA Clippers, all at 7:30. You got the scouting reports on those 5 teams.
Yeah.
Especially the Cleveland Cavaliers. LeBron James, J.R. Smith, Kyrie Irving.
Some of the best teams in the league. So these are teams that don't, obviously not just having the superstar talent. LeBron, Kyrie, Kevin Love for Cleveland, Al Horford with Boston, Chris Paul with the Clippers. This is versatile. There's a unique sense of versatility amongst the teams, one way or another. So it's going to take a combined effort. Certainly a better effort than what we've seen so far. And then, like I said, it just most likely you're not going to win most of these games because, like I said, you're already down a man with the Reggie Jackson situation. But if you have a respectable showcasing like you did against San Antonio, hey, maybe probably trying to sneak a win or two out of this. It wouldn't be that bad overall.
Yep. So we're going to have more scouting reports later on the Talk Shoe feed of the Michigan Sports Truth podcast on the post-game editions later on this through the upcoming weekend. The NBA and the NBA Players Association is expected to finalize a new collective bargaining agreement in early December. Your thoughts?
Very nice. We saw how, a little bit of hysteria that went through 5 years ago, where it was there was a lockout to start the season, which is kind of crazy because we saw NBA and NFL lockouts going on in the same year at the same time. But luckily, things came together, came to a head, and we were able to get the season on track. And conveniently enough, the season started on Christmas Day, so that was a nice little treat, so to speak, to welcome back the NBA. So the fact that they got this done now, or look to be on the verge of getting it done now, much better progress for what we saw 5 years ago. Much better cohesiveness. Much better meeting of the minds between the owners and the Players Association, and it's very, very good to see this get done.
Absolutely, yeah. So we definitely expect this to be a done deal. So now we have one team left to cover. That's the Detroit Tigers.
That one is long gone.
The Tigers continue their fire sale, the off-season fire sale. The Houston Astros were in trade talks with the Tigers about first baseman Miguel Cabrera. The San Francisco Giants were in trade talks with the Tigers about J.D. Martinez, the right fielder, and the Tigers and the Los Angeles Dodgers were talking a trade involving second baseman Ian Kinsler. His agent says Kinsler will only improve that potential trade to the LA Dodgers if they grant him an extension, a contract extension, that is.
Uh-huh.
And it's only a matter of time until we find out whether or not each of those deals comes to fruition.
Well, with knowing how fast they were able to get the Cameron Maybin deal done that quickly in terms of getting him traded, like I said, this is all
Los Angeles Angels of Anaheim.
Yeah, this is a dismantle job being done on the part of Chris Ilitch, unfortunately.
And Alanier. They got the hot garbage prospect reliever Victor Alcantara, a top prospect.
Yeah,
that's what they call him.
Yeah, but like I said, I can't really blame Al Avila in this instance because, like I said, he's only taking orders from the guy who's calling the shots, and that's obviously Chris Ilitch here.
That's right.
Not Mike, it's Chris. So you really can't blame Avila too much. What the hell is he going to do unless he wants to risk his job and get fired? I wouldn't put it past Chris Ilitch to do that. So
yeah,
in the case of saying, hey, if we trade Kinsler, there is who's to say that we could get a prospect back? What is his name? Cody something, I believe, from the Dodgers.
Cody Ross?
Not Cody Ross. It starts with a B.
We're gonna have to look at the Dodgers roster on ESPN.com or something like that, or MLB.com.
Yeah, I have an article from MLB Trade Rumors I'm trying to load up right now as we speak, but he showed some pretty good numbers. It shows what the Tigers are looking for: a young left-handed hitter with tons of power. I think he had over 20 homers in Double-A, just moved to Triple-A in the last part of the year. So that's one guy I'm sure that will be on the Tigers' radar if they want to get back in return if they give them Kinsler. And his name is Cody Bellinger. He is a first baseman / outfielder. So let's just say, for instance, this trade goes down. Kinsler goes to L.A. Bellinger comes to Detroit. Most likely within the next 2 years, if not at the end of next year, we expect Victor Martinez to be done, right? So once that opens up, you can move Cabrera to the DH and have Bellinger be your first baseman, or take his chances out in the outfield. But I think if this were to go down, long-term plan, especially now with Miggy's health in recent years, even if he's still here by the time Illich is done with his hatchet job, you move Cabrera to the DH, and Bellinger will be your new first baseman.
What if Cabrera does get traded? Then who do you use?
Well, hey, the first base spot is open anyway. So, hey, if in this scenario, and if we still get Bellinger, there's meet your new first baseman, Cody Bellinger.
But who will be the designated hitter? That's my other question.
Well, it depends. It depends on who the hell Chris Illich can get. Alavila could manage to get from the scrap heap. If he can get somebody back from the farm system, or maybe make a free agent signing, there's always a possibility. But then again, like I said, if he's taking orders from top saying, hey, we want to trim payroll and get younger, I doubt he's going to go after one of these free agency bats, like a Jose Bautista or anything like that, to fill in that DH spot should and if you trade Cabrera.
All right, well, Chris Illich's mission is for the Tigers to get younger and leaner, but I guess Illich doesn't mind getting at least one veteran. But beside the off-season hot stove news that's going on, the awards. Michael Fulmer has won the American League Rookie of the Year award, and former Tigers starting pitchers Max Scherzer from the Washington Nationals of the National League and Rick Porcello from the Boston Red Sox of the American League each won their Cy Young awards. Justin Verlander of Detroit finishes in second place in the Cy Young Award voting ballot. Few were ranting on Twitter, including his fiancée, Sports Illustrated swimsuit model Kate Upton, and his brother Ben Verlander. But even though you read their tweets, it is what it is, fair and square, so stop bitching.
I can't,
I think they have a little bit of a gripe, so to speak, because, for instance, 2 people left Verlander completely off their ballot, which is pretty fucking insane if you ask me, because compared to the eventual winner, Rick Porcello, not only did Verlander have way more first-place votes, I think he had 16 compared to Porcello's 8. Let's look at the comparison. Verlander started more games. He had far more strikeouts. He had a better whip, had a better batting average against 207 compared to Porcello's 230, pitched more innings, had a much better WAR, and in terms of games with 2 earned runs or fewer, Porcello actually did worse. He had 16, whereas Verlander had 23 of those type of games. And I guess if you want to say 2 things that swung the award toward Porcello were wins and run support. Now, wins, especially in this day and age, the sabermetrics and analytics, that's more so considered the team stat as opposed to individual stat. And run support, again, that formulates into whether or not your team gets enough wins. Both of those stats completely unrelated to pitching whatsoever. Yet because Porcello has 22 wins, Verlander has 16, and Porcello has a run support of 7.63, and Verlander has a run support of 4.35. That deserves a difference. Please, if you had the run support that Porcello had, which is what the Boston Red Sox, that vaunted offensive lineup, hell, throw me out there. I would have won 15 games. Whereas Verlander, I think that should be more admirable and more of a better case for Verlander. The fact that he had such a god-awful run support, right, the Tigers, scored 3 runs or less 16 times for him, whereas for the Red Sox, it only happened 5 times for Porcello. You switch the reverse, you switch teams. It's no question who wins this award, in my opinion. And the fact that 2 guys, their names escape me at the moment, but it's pretty much a good thing, because after this, they don't deserve to have another ballot ever again. Leave Justin Verlander off the ballot entirely for Masahiro Tanaka and J.A. Happ. Sorry, that's fucking ridiculous. My 2 cents.
Yep. Nothing we can do about it now, but here's what matters more. It's us devoted fans wanting the Tigers to win the World Series, but they have to go through some major pain first. A lot of major pain, in fact. They failed to make the postseason by just 1 game this past season, and Chris Ilitch decided to make Al Avila bring back Brad Ausmus by exercising his option for 2017, and that sure as hell doesn't earn any individual player an award.
Well, by the way, if you want to go to the subject of more pain, now let's look at the fact that if you want to go back to the last time the Tigers made the playoffs, which is 2014, that now contains a roster which you have now what? 4. Count them. 1, 2, 3, 4 Cy Young Award winners. David Price, Max Scherzer, Justin Verlander, and now Rick Porcello. And the fact that you couldn't even win a single playoff game, let alone get to the damn World Series, which is a further indictment.
Under manager Brad Ausmus
should not have been put in that position. But hey, yeah, let's blame it on the fact that we need to cut payroll and get younger or whatever. Fuck you, Chris Ilitch.
Yeah, fuck you, Chris Ilitch and Brad Ausmus. But not Al Avila, though. He's one hell of a GM. He's trying to work his ass off. If only Chris Ilitch would either actually know what the fuck is going on and just cut Al Avila loose, cut Al Avila some slack, let him do all his shit. And
how about this? If we were more hopeful about Mike Ilitch's remaining health, we wouldn't be in this spot right now.
Right. Unless Chris Ilitch would have quite a change of heart, which is likely not going to be the case, at least for right now.
The nun and Slim walked out the damn door.
Yeah, this is why I'm rooting against the Tigers. I want them to lose over 100 games. I want them to suffer. I want Chris Ilitch to suffer. That way Chris Ilitch would have his ego altered, and then maybe sell the team to Dan Gilbert. So my hashtag, fire Chris Ilitch.
Yeah, I agree with you on most of those points, especially the part where if the team's going to be left in Chris Ilitch's hands, just sell the damn team already. Put me out of my misery.
Yeah, definitely. Yeah. So that's all for Tigers talk, and we have now covered all of the Michigan sports teams here on this episode. And now it's time for our 10-question segment. Ed, are you ready?
Ready as you are, Taylor, so go ahead and let him rip.
It's time for the 10-question segment on the Michigan Sports Truth on Spreaker.
Question number 1, did the Michigan Wolverines get lucky that they remained in the top 4 of the college football playoff rankings?
I would say, on the most part, yes, because a loss in November, I don't care if it's on the road or not, or at night or not, you lose to an unranked 4-loss Iowa team, a team that you were favored to win by at least 20 points or more, and you go ahead at that type of performance and then lose. Not second field goal or not, but the fact that you lost, I'm surprised that they weren't on the outside looking in. I think, again, because Clemson and Washington lost, and the fact that Michigan does have that resume in their back pocket of, hey, we got 3 wins from current top 10 teams. That saved their asses for now, but they cannot afford to have another setback. between now and the Big Ten championship game.
Next question.
Potentially.
Mm-hmm. Question number 2, how devastating is Michigan junior quarterback Wilton Spate's injury, and how can John O'Korn survive the last 2 games against the Indiana Hoosiers and the Ohio State Buckeyes?
Like I said, it's pretty bad because, you lost a consistent leader who was improving week by week. Very good job of protecting the ball, showing very good confidence in his passing game, deep passes and whatnot. Now with O'Korn, like I said, I think you're going to get much more versatility with him using his legs, using a little bit of option play, zone read, spread option, spread offense, that type of scenario, which could open up, like I said, open up to more risk. I think we're going to see that a little bit in Indiana, definitely big time against Ohio State. But O'Korn, this will be, if you want to say, his warm-up game before his big test against Ohio State. You can't say that unless he looks absolutely terrible against Indiana, which I would hope not to see. But if he looks impressive enough, you would make you feel a little bit better before going to Columbus.
Next question.
Question number 3, will the Central Michigan Chippewas football team's running backs take advantage of the Eastern Michigan Eagles' defensive front's flaws in the second half of their loss to the Northern Illinois Huskies this past Wednesday night?
I say no because, like I said, I alluded to the fact that I think when you have such a deficit at that type of spot, that type of position in your offense, I don't care what defense you run on. Sometimes you get lucky, but when it's such a consistently bad manner, it shows in the end result. So that's why it led to my my prediction of Eastern beating Central.
Yeah, CMU misses Devin Spalding and cannot overcome adversity. Still no word on whether when Devin Spalding will return or whether he will return or not for the rest of the season.
Next question.
Question number 4, can the Michigan State Spartans basketball team be in the same trouble their football team has been this season?
They shouldn't, because I don't think Tom Izzo will allow it. He will not accept it under any circumstance. It's far different than what I think is a far much more different temperament than what D'Antonio has. Izzo would not allow that to happen on his watch. You'll be able to see a lot of players getting benched before you see a Michigan State basketball team, at the type of season that Michigan State's football team is having right now.
You never know what might happen down the road. Whether Tom Izzo allows it or not, even if Tom Izzo doesn't allow it.
Next question.
So I think they're going to have much. I was going to say they're going to have much more shows. They're not going to have bad losses like we saw against Kentucky. They're going to have, like I say, hey, they could prove a lot of people wrong. A lot of people wrong by getting a win against Duke. It's not that likely, but hey, it's a great way to shut a lot of people up, saying, "Oh my goodness, what's wrong with the athletic program?"
All right. Question number 5, what are the chances of Lions linebacker DeAndre Levy returning to the starting defensive lineup?
I would say very high. The fact that he's practicing so far this week and has stayed, has been in practice every day. You haven't heard anything about, he had a setback here or he had to stop here. If he doesn't play against Jacksonville, because, I would say you should, because he needs to work off some of that rust anyway. I think there's a good chance he'll play in Thanksgiving against Minnesota. So that's my answer to that question of how confident I feel about Levy's chances of returning. He'll be back by Thanksgiving if things keep going the way they are now.
Rising up very quickly is DeAndre Levy from his injury.
Next question.
Question number 6, can Piston center Andre Drummond keep improving at the free throw line?
Well, like I said, he had a bit of a slip-up the other night with the 1 for 4, but like I said, if he has a better trajectory where, shows more consistency, let's say 2 for 4, 3 for 5, even that type of thing, I wouldn't mind those kind of nights. I'd rather have that than the 1 for 4s and the 0 for 5s, that type of thing. So as long as he has those kind of nights on a more consistent basis, then he should be fine.
The key is to keep practicing.
Practice is the big key here.
Yep.
Next question.
And question number 7, how can the Pistons win the rebounding battle? Because that's another key.
Well, like I said, my opinion, I think I alluded to this earlier, but I'll reinforce it here. I think you got to give Boban Marjanovic a few more minutes, extra minutes off the bench, and make sure some of your key guys like Drummond and whatnot, Drummond and Morris, I guess you could say your guys at the rim, they don't get into early foul troubles. That would be one reason as to how they can improve. A couple of reasons rather, is how they can improve of not getting outclassed in the rebounding department.
Mm-hmm.
It should be a strength there.
Yep. Hopefully the Pistons can win the rebounding battle. That's a key to winning the game. Let's just keep our fingers crossed.
Next question.
Question number 8. Are Ken Holland and Jeff Blashill finally starting to understand what Anthony Mantha can do for the Red Wings?
Well, I think it was kind of begrudging that they had to call him up due to the Anthony CU injury, but I think, that it could be something. I won't have too much stake in that, because I think it's like as soon as a couple guys get healthy, recover from injury, they'll send Mantha back down. But this is a chance to prove them wrong a little bit. So give a little bit more time. If he scores, just get a little bit of a consistent streak where every other game he scores a goal here and there. That could convince them, hey, we got something going here.
Yeah, because remember when Tyler Bertuzzi got sent back down to Grand Rapids and the Red Wings kept Anthony Mantha up, he just kept working hard and he got an assist against Tampa Bay. Although he didn't get anything against Montreal, he kept working hard. He kept driving the puck to the net.
Yeah, there you go. So that type of drive, that type of hard work, that hopefully it would resonate with your coach and GM. Say, hey, you know what, this kid, he's not taking it lightly. He wants a spot up here, so let's reward him.
Mm-hmm. So there's your evidence right there.
Next question.
Question number 9. Will the San Francisco Giants be the first team to pick up J.D. Martinez?
Too early to tell because, like I said, these rumors are just that, rumors. We haven't seen any official reports saying, oh, wow, there's a good chance this could happen, or we haven't seen like Buster Olney or any of the guys in ESPN or MLB Network saying, heavily hinting that, hey, this could be close to a done deal here. So any other team could swoop in at the 11th hour. Hey, who's to say the Astros saying, won't be thinking, hey, you know what, we fucked up the first time by trading away. Let's rectify that by bringing him back. So there's a lot of ways this could go for most likely J.D. Martinez's departure to Detroit.
Next question.
And finally, I know you're going to answer this the same way, but question number 10, what are the chances Ian Kinsler gets picked up by the LA Dodgers?
Now, actually, I think this would have much more a better probability than, say, the Giants picking up JD, because it's not the first time I've heard this, the whole Kinsler to the Dodgers thing. Especially if the Tigers can find a way to somehow finagle Cody Bellinger from the Dodgers as a good chip, a good prospect to get in return. If that's the case, hats off to them in that regard. In my opinion, yes, it'll be sucked to give up Kinsler after the season he's had, but he had to go, especially with him having a Gold Glove season. But if Chris Ilitch wants to be determined to taking out this team that his father helped build in recent years, then sure, by all means, ruin your legacy, you asswipe.
Yeah, absolutely. Chris Ilitch, GTFO, get the fuck out, please. Sell the team and get the fuck out of here. Nobody cares about your Little Caesars tradition. Nobody ever should anyway. Even though I love it, I don't even care. Sports business.
It's good people.
Sports business wise.
It's better to eat it fresh and hot.
Yeah. You can keep the Red Wings, but just sell the Tigers.
Well.
But for all the listeners and fans out there, that concludes our 10 question segment. If you want to answer those questions, just replay the episode and answer them in the comment bank below this episode. Jeff Moss has actually returned from his hiatus. He actually posted once in the Detroit Sports Rag group. And he tweeted,
I'm sure
the world is a vampire on Twitter at Jeff Moss DSR.
Yeah, I'm sure he was a little bit of shell shock after what he saw in the election last week. So, hey, it's good to see Miss back. I'm sure a lot of people in the group, including our own lovable Miranda Shea. We were all missing him, saying, "Hey, is he all right? What's going on?" But he's back with a vengeance, and we couldn't be happier to see it.
Back, yeah, absolutely. So that wraps up episode 240 of Spreaker's feed on the Michigan Sports Truth podcast. Ed, we did a hell of a job. Thanks so much again for your help. I'll talk to you again next week, Wednesday, for episode 241. Any final words? I'll be sure to keep you updated with what my schedule brings with me. But rest assured, next week we'll be able to give the fans a pre-Thanksgiving Day treat. Yep. All right, so I'll talk to you next week, whichever day comes.
Yep, absolutely. Take care, Taylor.
Thanks. Take care, Ed. So before we sign off, I want to remind everyone to share this podcast, this episode, and our entire podcast on social media. Have their friends share that as well. And follow me on Spreaker as Taylor Phillips online at Spreaker.com, because I want to tell them that the Michigan Sports Truth podcast is in search of local advertising sponsors. If anyone has a business that's interested in sponsoring this program, you can follow Sports Radio Detroit on Twitter at Sports Radio DET, that's Sports Radio Det, and send them a direct message or email them at sportsradiodetroit.com in the contact section. Also like their Facebook page and join their Facebook group. And finally, find their podcasts available on iTunes and Podbean. For Ed Smith, I'm Taylor Phillips. If there's anything you fans want more of or less of on our podcast, please let us know. Follow us on Twitter at DT2Phillips with 2 L's and at EdSmith313. Also like our Facebook page, The Michigan Sports Truth, and join our Facebook group. TTFN, ta-ta for now.
Bon appetit.